Jungkook never imagined his life would spiral so fast. A brilliant university student scraping by with part-time jobs, carrying the weight of his sick younger brother and drowning in debt left behind by his father's gambling. He had no one to turn to, until he made a choice that would change everything. He signed a contract. A contract that handed him over, body and soul, to the most feared man in the city. Kim Taehyung. Known in the underground as V, Taehyung was cruel, composed, and untouchable. The mafia boss with eyes like fire and a voice like sin. He didn't need another toy, but something about Jungkook's desperate gaze, trembling lips, and the fire in his soul pulled him in. "You're mine now, Jian Jungkook. You don't get to breathe without my permission." Jungkook was taken from his rundown apartment to Taehyung's palatial estate, cold, vast, and guarded like a fortress. Everything screamed wealth, yet Jungkook felt like a caged bird. Taehyung gave him a room beside his own, clothed tailored to fit him, expensive gifts, but his eyes never softened. And yet, in the dead of night, when Jungkook cried alone in silence, Taehyung stood outside the door, listening. Taehyung made it clear, no running. No touching without permission. No falling in love. But rules meant nothing to a heart aching to be seen. Jungkook's innocence slowly became dangerous, and Taehyung's restraint began to crack. "I don't care what you do to me," Jungkook said one night, voice shaking. "Just stop looking at me like I'm something you can throw away." Taehyung's gaze burned. "I don't throw away what's mine." When another mafia boss made a move on Jungkook, Taehyung saw red. The city trembled as he made it clear, "Jian Jungkook belongs to me. Touch him, and you die." But what scared Jungkook more than the blood Taehyung spilled, was the way his own heart fluttered at the protectiveness in his voice. Jungkook discovered that Taehyung wasn't always cruel. Once, he had a lover. Once, he was kind. Once, he was broken. Betrayed by someone he trusted, Taehyung buried his emotions under layers of power and violence. And now Jungkook, who smiled even when he was hurting, was peeling back those layers with every glance. Taehyung hated it. He hated the way his heart softened when Jungkook touched his hand. It happened after a nightmare. Jungkook ran into Taehyung's room, shaking and terrified after dreaming of his brother dying. Taehyung, half asleep and bare-chested, pulled him in without words. His arms wrapped around the younger man, his fingers tracing the scar behind his ear. "I don't feel safe," Jungkook whispered. "You are now," Taehyung murmured, pressing his lips to Jungkook's forehead. And then, the kiss. Gentle. Unspoken. Dangerous. It was slow. It was painful. Taehyung fought it every day. But love is louder than fear. And Jungkook, despite everything, smiled like he still believed in happy endings. Taehyung never did. Until he held Jungkook and realized. He didn't want to own him. He wanted to protect him. Jungkook thought he understood Taehyung, but the more he learned, the more the shadows around the mafia boss grew. The longer he stayed in Taehyung's world, the more twisted it became. One night, Taehyung vanished for a whole day, leaving Jungkook pacing the massive mansion, his thoughts spiraling out of control. When Taehyung finally returned, his suit was stained with blood, his eyes cold and distant. "You're late." Jungkook's voice trembled, but he couldn't stop himself from asking, "Where were you?" Taehyung's expression didn't change. Handling business, the silence between them thickened. There was something different now. Taehyung wasn't just the cruel, distant boss. He was hiding something, something that could destroy both of them. Jungkook's heart raced as Taehyung led him into his private office, the door clicking shut behind them. The air felt charged, like a storm was brewing. Taehyung stood by his desk, his back turned as he tugged off his jacket. "I know what you're thinking," Taehyung said, his voice cold but filled with an undercurrent of something else. "What do you mean?" Jungkook's hands clenched at his sides, the unspoken words choking him. Taehyung turned slowly, locking eyes with Jungkook. His gaze was unreadable. "You think I'm dangerous? That I'll destroy you?" Jungkook swallowed hard. I never wanted you to be part of this world." Taehyung's voice dropped to a whisper, his eyes burning with something softer now. "But you came into it on your own. And now, you're mine." No turning back. Jungkook flinched, but Taehyung's words hit too deep. "I'm not yours to own," he whispered, though a part of him knew he was. Things between them began to unravel, tension thickening the air. The small moments of tenderness they shared grew fewer, replaced by arguments, unspoken truths, and heated exchanges. "You think you can just walk away from me?" Jungkook Taehyung's voice was low, dangerous, as they stood in the hallway of the mansion. "You belong to me." "No," Jungkook shouted, the fury in his chest boiling over. "You think you can control everything? I'm not your property." For the first time, Taehyung's calm facet cracked. His face darkened, a storm cloud shadowing his features. He stepped forward, his presence suffocating. "Don't push me." Jungkook felt a knot tighten in his throat. "I hate you." The words spilled out before he could stop them. But instead of anger, Taehyung's eyes softened. The shift was so subtle, Jungkook almost missed it. "You don't know what hate is, Jungkook," he said, his voice low and almost tender. "Not until you see what I'll do to keep you." Jungkook's breath hitched, and his chest ached in ways he couldn't understand. He didn't want to feel this way. Not for someone like Taehyung. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop. The tension between them reached its breaking point a few days later, when Taehyung appeared in Jungkook's room, unannounced, his face a mixture of frustration and something darker. Jungkook stood by the window, looking out at the rain falling in sheets, his thoughts a mess. He didn't hear Taehyung enter until he was right behind him. "Do you want to know the truth?" Jungkook Taehyung's voice was raw, vulnerable for the first time. "I've spent my entire life pretending I didn't care. I didn't need anyone. But then I saw you. I saw the way you needed something, someone. And I couldn't stay away." Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. "Taehyung, I'm not like other men," Taehyung continued, stepping closer. "I'm dangerous. I'm broken. But I can't let you go. I can't." Jungkook turned slowly, his eyes searching Taehyung's for the truth. And in that moment, he saw it, the vulnerability that Taehyung had hidden so well. The cracks in his mask. And Jungkook finally understood. Taehyung wasn't trying to control him. He was afraid of losing him. Jungkook hesitated, his heart pounding. "I don't know if I can forgive you for everything." Taehyung's eyes darkened, and he took another step forward, his hand cupping Jungkook's face gently. "I'll make you hate me, but I'll also make you love me. Because, Jungkook, you belong to me." Jungkook trembled, but this time, he didn't pull away. The weeks that followed were filled with hard choices. Jungkook couldn't ignore the dangerous world he had fallen into, nor could he deny the strange pull he felt toward Taehyung. He had no escape now. He was too deep, tangled in a web of mafia politics, Taehyung's power, and his own desires. And as much as Jungkook tried to convince himself that he was just a pawn in Taehyung's game, deep down, he knew the truth. He was already in too deep to turn back. And Taehyung owned him now. The mansion had never felt so suffocating. Every inch of space, every step Jungkook took, seemed to be controlled by Taehyung's presence. He'd become both a comfort and a torment. Jungkook's body yearned for freedom, yet his heart betrayed him. The more he tried to escape the pull of Taehyung's world, the more he found himself entangled in it. The sharp sting of Taehyung's cruelty, his coldness, his command, was slowly being replaced by something more dangerous. He was falling. And worse, he didn't know how to stop. One evening, as the cold winds howled outside, Jungkook overheard a conversation in the study. His curiosity got the better of him as he stood near the door, hidden in the shadows. Taehyung was on the phone with one of his associates, his voice low and clipped. This deal, Taehyung's voice was laced with danger. If he doesn't comply, he'll be eliminated. No mercy. Jungkook's heart stopped. The weight of the words hung in the air like a guillotine. Who was Taehyung talking about? It wasn't the first time Jungkook had witnessed the ruthless side of the mafia boss, but hearing it so casually, so coldly, made his stomach churn. It was a reminder of the world Taehyung came from. The world he was now a part of. Jungkook's pulse quickened as he backed away from the door, his thoughts spiraling. Was he just another deal? Another asset to be used and discarded when it was no longer convenient? His breath hitched, and for the first time, Jungkook questioned if Taehyung's feelings were real, or if it was just manipulation. The air was thick when Jungkook finally confronted Taehyung. He found him in his office, eyes cold as he stared at the papers spread out before him. Jungkook's fists clenched at his sides. "You're not the man I thought you were," Jungkook said, his voice unsteady but filled with determination. "You're not some broken man I can fix. You're a monster." Taehyung's eyes flickered up, sharp and cold. "You don't know what you're talking about." Jungkook stepped forward, his chest tight with emotion. "I heard you. I heard you make the deal. You're willing to kill people. You don't care about anyone but yourself." Taehyung's gaze darkened, but there was something vulnerable lurking beneath the surface. "I'm doing what needs to be done. I'm not a Prince Charming, Jungkook. I never claimed to be." Jungkook's heart raced, the anger boiling inside him. "You think that gives you the right to play with people's lives? To drag me into this world?" Taehyung stood up abruptly, his presence filling the room. "You think you have a choice in any of this?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You're mine. Everything I do, everything I've done, is to keep you. I'll burn this entire city down if it means keeping you by my side." Jungkook stared at him, caught between fear and desire. Taehyung's words both terrified and captivated him. The weight of them sank deep into his chest, making him ache with something he couldn't identify. "I can't be owned, Taehyung. Not like this." Taehyung stepped closer, his eyes flickering with something fierce and unyielding. "You're wrong, Jungkook. You're already mine. And you always will be." The tension between them was unbearable. Neither of them knew how much longer they could continue pretending that their relationship was built on anything other than something darker. But despite everything, Jungkook couldn't escape the pull of Taehyung. One night, after a heated argument, Jungkook fled the mansion, the cool night air biting at his skin as he stormed through the streets. He needed to breathe. to think, to clear his mind of the man who had wrapped himself around his heart in ways that terrified him. But Taehyung found him. It was late. The moon hung low in the skies. Jungkook sat on a park bench, his head buried in his hands. He didn't hear Taehyung approach until he felt the presence behind him. Jungkook. Taehyung's voice was soft but heavy with an emotion Jungkook couldn't decipher. Jungkook didn't look up. Go away. You don't own me. Taehyung's hands gripped his shoulders, gently but firmly pulling him into his chest. I never wanted to own you, he whispered, his lips brushing against Jungkook's ear. I just wanted you to stay. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat as Taehyung's lips finally found his. The kiss was rough at first, driven by months of frustration and unspoken longing, but then it softened, slow, searching, like they were both testing the waters. And then it happened. Jungkook's heart skipped, and everything else disappeared. In that moment, he was no longer just the poor student. He was the man who belonged to Taehyung. And Taehyung was his. The kiss didn't change everything. But it did something worse. It complicated everything. Jungkook found himself in the heart of Taehyung's world, a place where love and hate blurred into something darker, something intoxicating. He was no longer just a bystander. He was a player in a game he didn't understand, and Taehyung was the ruthless man calling the shots. But the deeper he fell into Taehyung's grip, the more he realized something else. He wasn't just falling for Taehyung. He was falling for the man behind the mask. The broken, beautiful man who could love with a fierceness that shook Jungkook to his core. The question was no longer whether he was owned. It was whether he could survive the power of that love. Taehyung had changed. Not in the way people hope criminals will. He was still a mafia boss. Still ruthless. Still feared. But beneath that cold armor, something had shifted, and only Jungkook could see it. Jungkook had never meant to fall in love with a man like him. A man who bought him. A man who controlled everything around him like a chessboard, manipulating people, power, and pain. But he did fall. And now he couldn't imagine walking away. Taehyung stood by the window of his penthouse, cigarette half burnt between his fingers. The city lights shimmered below, but his mind was fixed on something else, someone else. Behind him, the soft shuffle of footsteps echoed, and without turning, he spoke. You should have left me when you had the chance. Jungkook's voice was steady. I tried. But you made me fall for you. Taehyung finally turned, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were begging. I don't deserve you, I know, Jungkook whispered, stepping closer. But I'm still here. The silence between them was no longer sharp. It was heavy, weighted with memories of nights spent tangled in bed sheets, of kisses that tasted like desperation, of arguments that left them breathless, but never broken. I killed for you, Jungkook, Taehyung confessed, voice low. I destroyed parts of myself just to keep you safe. Tears brimmed in Jungkook's eyes. And I hated you for it, but I also loved you for it. You broke me, and yet, you made me feel alive. A beat passed. Then another. And then, Taehyung dropped to his knees. The mafia boss, the cruel, feared, untouchable Taehyung, on his knees before the boy who was never supposed to matter. I own the city. I own empires. But you own me. Jungkook's tears fell freely now. He cupped Taehyung's face, trembling as he spoke. Then stop making me feel like I'm just another thing you control. Love me like a man, not like a possession. Taehyung nodded slowly, his voice breaking. "I will. I swear to you, I'll never hurt you again." The world never stopped fearing Taehyung. But in private, there was a boy who melted his rage. They moved far from the chaos, building a life in quiet shadows. No more cages, no more power games, just two scarred souls healing together. But no one knew the truth. That every night, he came home to the boy who once hated him. The boy who now wore his ring. The boy who made him human. Because in the end, Taehyung may have owned Jungkook's body once, but Jungkook had always owned his heart.